Hi everyone, it's Guillaume from Startup Basecamp. Welcome to the Tech4Climate Podcast. During the show, you will have the opportunity to meet the best climate tech founders, investors, and experts from both Silicon Valley and around the globe. They will share with you their stories and personal journeys into this growing and exciting industry, giving you some insight into the ecosystems that help you to take part in the fight against climate change and benefit from the opportunities it can represent. The podcast is divided in two small interviews. During the first part, you will get to know our speakers, their perspectives on the climate crisis and how climate tech is changing the game. The second part of the discussion will be for members of our community who will learn the speakers' secret sauce on how to and share with you their unique expertise on topics such as fundraising, management, strategy, and so on, to help you to become a better leader in your field. So before we start, I would like to quickly share what we are doing at Startup Basecamp to support climate tech founders in accessing resources and gaining visibility with investors they seek. Our initiatives include a membership-based community platform offering access to a dedicated Slack group with a growing number of founders, experts, and investors from around the world, and a series of exclusive content such as interviews, weekly job listings, events, and our quarterly online pitch of night opportunity. But more than a place where you can learn, exchange, and grow, we are building a matchmaking service to facilitate connections between our members and top investors and experts in the field. And soon, alongside with other top investors, we will be launching a small fund to co-invest in the growth and acceleration of our members. Finally, all of this is possible because of your support and donations. We are a small self-funded team, and we want you to be part of this collective movement against climate change. So please share one episode with a friend and subscribe to the channels. As an added bonus, we will plant a tree for each of our subscribers each time we reach 1,000 new fans or donors. Do not hesitate to connect with me via social media or email guillaume@startupbasecamp. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope to get in touch with you soon. And now, let's go for the show. Hi everyone, in today's episode we are speaking with Erin Beilharz, Managing Director of the CleanTech Hub at Lufthansa Group. The CleanTech Hub is seeking to push boundaries of aviation by driving and accelerating the change towards a cleaner and more sustainable aeronautic industry. Supported by the entire Lufthansa Group, the Hub empowers startups through technology projects, partnerships, knowledge transfer, and acceleration programs. So if you have an idea about how to create impact in aviation through technology in the areas of alternative fuel, aircraft hardware, digitalization, waste reduction, new clean propulsion, and more, they will make sure you get the support. I was excited to have Erin on the show, an incredible woman who is passionate about nature, travel, and putting people together to create impact on the environment. After studying in Canada and spending the first 7 years of her career in Asia, Erin joined the Lufthansa Group in 2017. To then, in 2021, at the launch of the Hub, take the Managing Director position to support tech founders who are building the aviation of tomorrow. In this episode, Erin will share her extensive knowledge of the aviation industry, its sustainability challenges and technology opportunities, and nature-based solutions which can be deployed today to directly impact climate change. Then, she will cover in detail how they select and support founders and how they measure the impact that they base their onboarding decisions on. She will go on to highlight Underdog's area in the aviation environment, in which she sees exciting potential for investment growth and impact. Following that, Erin will share her view on the climate crisis today, what's next for the CleanTech Hub, and how you can be involved in this growing cleaner aviation movement. The second part of the show, Erin will give her secret sauce for founders and corporates looking to get Lufthansa ready and pitch successfully to join the CleanTech Hub program. Lastly, Erin will cover how she tackles challenges to maintain a healthy work-life balance and share a few inspiring authors for climate tech founders. Erin, welcome to the show. Hi Erin, welcome to the Tech4Climate Podcast. I'm super happy to have you here with us today. I believe it's going to be a great opportunity for you to tell us your story and learn more about what you guys are up to with Lufthansa Group CleanTech Hub. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, Guillaume.
So before we start, as usual, could you please give us a 30-second introduction about Lufthansa Group CleanTech Hub?
CleanTech Hub is an internal Lufthansa center of excellence, which is pulling together all of the different business units, clean technology, which we've made over the years, and opening up the Lufthansa Group to external technologies that we need to become a cleaner company over the next few years.
So let's start from the top. Can you tell us a bit more about your personal story and background? What are you passionate about? What do you do besides working on supporting and investing in founders who are changing the world of aviation? What makes you feel inspired or like your best self? Who is Erin?
So I hate to say it, but my social life at the moment is not that good. We're coming out of the pandemic, I hope, and there's been a lot of time at home. We had a bit of what the Germans call Kurzarbeit at the beginning of the pandemic. So we had a couple of months where a lot of staff of the Lufthansa Group, in order to kind of mobilize, were sent home, and they were kind of on call for your boss will call you if there's any work. But until then, just sit tight and wait for the phone to ring. This happened in the German spring, which is around, April, which is coming up now. And we had beautiful weather and the flowers were blossoming. So we went for a lot of walks and we did, my son was at home doing homeschooling. My husband was at home. So we had a lot of family time. We had an au pair that we actually didn't need because we were always there, but we had a Colombian au pair, so she was there. And we did boot camp in the backyard every afternoon, and we went for super long walks, and we petted horses in the neighborhood. And that's what we had been doing. Now that work has become a little bit more rock and roll. We're starting to see business trips coming back, and actually all of the things that make aviation and working in aviation kind of sexy and fun, dealing with people, connecting with people. So I would say not a lot of social trips recently, but the business trips at least have started coming back, which I can kind of mix business and pleasure in this regard, and also find it, part of the fun for me.
So tell us a bit more about your different work and life experience prior to the CleanTech Hub. What did you learn during that journey that gave you, in a way, a hedge to lead the hub?
So I think that my journey to becoming managing director of CleanTech Hub is a bit strange because I was asked by the head of sustainability to join at around summer 2021. And at this time, I was really excited about the prospect because obviously networking, sales, all of these kind of things, really dealing with a lot of people and putting ideas together which haven't been combined before is something that I really, really like professionally and maybe personally as well. So having kind of different impulses and seeing things shifting in the market and putting people together or companies together or concepts together is something that I have always really liked. So this was kind of a culmination. I had a really long, basically a long 7 years in Asia after university. So in university and in high school, I touched environmental topics and environmental studies. My parents sent me on a pretty awesome school at sea when I was 16 in the Bahamas, where we did whale watching, and we were like making sure that the whale stocks were photographed and that we sent all of the documentation to the World Wildlife Fund. So there I really got a little bit of a first taste of it. And then in high school, I was also going to it was when Al Gore and this whole time when climate was cool and looking after the environment was cool. I had the feeling though afterwards that in the context of the world, we had economic crises, we had terrorism, and all of these things, and the environment really kind of slipped out of the public consciousness. So now that it is back in the public consciousness, I haven't touched it professionally in 20 years, but it's kind of like uh, bringing back what I studied initially, what I was interested in, and bringing me back to my academic roots, which I kind of always said, I didn't really ever mention too much that I was in that business a long time ago, but actually now it's kind of a time to be proud that I was looking at that when I was a young, impressionable person.
Part of this whole story, do you see or did you identify any like specific haha moments, as I call them, that you can recall that was in a way the driver or the excitement, say, okay, this is the time now for joining such a movement and be part of it. And the CleanTech Hub is actually the best opportunity that I have here in front of me by being part of this group. Any moment that you can recall?
Not a specific moment, but when I was doing environmental studies and studying geography, really back in the day in the 90s in Canada, um, this kind of idea of doing good just for the sake of good and not having an opportunity to benefit economically. Um, for me, this is not sustainable. Sustainability also means that there is a chance to grow a business out of it, to sustain people's salaries, to sustain more than just doing good for the world, because I think that human beings need more than just an altruistic goal. Um, if you have achieved everything else in life, then you can be altruistic. But I mean, if you talk about young people, they also want to prove themselves career-wise. They want to um, gain certain successes on their resume. And I think that it's extremely naive to think that humans don't tick that way. So the fact that there is now so much opportunity to be had in this clean tech sector is really putting together doing good with also a sustainable financial growth. And I think that this is where things are starting to click together. And where everybody who is in this industry is really having these aha moments all the time. So I think that this is, something that shifted. I think for us, it shifted in aviation, just coming out of the Corona crisis, or maybe we're not even out yet, but it wasn't really top priority, I think, for the whole industry until it was, clear that we have to do something. So I'm happy that this is now the case, and I think that there's a lot more energy and drive from all of the different players in the industry that I see. Aha.
So, exactly. So I think this is a good segue to move to our next question. So we like to zoom out here and get a more like the macro approach of the challenges in the industry. I mean, we all know that the aerospace industry has been had bad press and traveling by planes is against what many consider being climate friendly. So can you give us your overview of the aviation landscape today? Which are the sectors and categories which have the biggest impact in terms of waste, CO2 emission, and by consequence on climate change? And where do you see solutions are the most needed?
So the CleanTech Hub was set up along the premise that the aviation industry commits the most of its environmental crimes, let's say, on the flight activity itself. So we were really focused on all of the technology around making flight more sustainable, making our activity, which is our main business activity. And we are completely de-scoped from the CleanTech Hub on solar panels on buildings, or air leakage in buildings, or things like that. What we're driving to work, what kind of company cars we have. This is all de-scoped. It exists in the larger context of the sustainability planning of the Lufthansa Group, but our main focus, also as a company, is on our business activity of flying. And obviously, burning fuel is the biggest driver. And then there are all kinds of things that we can do around flight to make this activity of burning fuel lessened or to mitigate it. So there are things like looking for better aerodynamics, changing the types of fuel that we are using, looking at different types of engines, looking at different types of powertrains, different types of aircraft, and all of these kind of things. So these are the technology sectors that we are looking for to mitigate our burning of fossil fuel. This is the main driver for us. Of course, there's other things like weight and noise or waste and noise and other things that we are also producing, which is not good, and we have to focus on that as well. But I think it's like our 4 things are CO2 emissions, non-CO2 emissions, noise, waste.
In terms of the solution regarding all of those challenges that you mentioned prior now, in terms of and it sounds that mainly burning fossil fuels is one of the main challenges that the industry is facing. Do you see as of today, in terms of implementing potential solution to be deployed at scales, which one are they, and what are the proportion between what we call tech software solution versus nature-based solution, if any exists or any needs to be implemented?
So there are natural solutions. I think we need to, cut, what do they say in Germany? They cut the elephant into slices, which I don't understand what this means, but it sounds pretty gross. You need to cut the problem into different sections in order to deal with it. So if you're talking about getting rid of fossil fuels, then we have something called sustainable aviation fuel, also known as SAF. And this is something that we have committed to buying and switching over to. However, obviously the main point here is that there's a pretty huge green premium on this SAF. There's not enough of it, and it's hell expensive as well. So our aviation profit margins are at the level where obviously this money to pay for very expensive fuel cannot come out of our normal operating budget. This has to come either from incentives from the government or kickbacks or whatever, some kind of financial incentive from the government, or it has to be passed on to our passengers. This is a clear statement which our CEO, Carsten Spohr, always makes, and this is what we need to look at. If you're talking about IT tech, there are things to do, but this is to make our flight more efficient. There's nothing to do with you can't use IT to create an alternative for fossil fuel. You can use less fossil fuel by flying more efficiently, by implementing information technology, some kind of application or some kind of artificial intelligence to make the whole system more efficient. We have projects, we have done a pretty cool one recently and just launched it, which is already shaving a couple of percentages off of our use of fossil fuels or fuel in general for our flights, called OpsSuite, which is a project that Swiss, one of our airlines, and Google did together, based on what happens when an irregularity, when a flight gets canceled or something like that, and what happens over the course of the 4 days, because you have a very big network and all of these aircraft are moving parts in one network and they all have to be planned together. They're not independent aircraft. They're all part of one kind of system with a lot of moving parts. So in order for us to forecast, if that happens, what is the fallout? You can then kind of plan towards different KPIs, and one of the KPIs could be to reduce the effect of climate change, or you could reduce CO2. Meaning you have a whole bunch of passengers which were affected by this flight. You can then shift them onto other carriers, shift them onto other flights. You can shift them partially onto other flights and then send an alternative aircraft which is smaller. And there's a lot of things you can do. So we're now building up tools in order to help us plan what is the best recourse. And if we want to have the lowest CO2 impact, we can basically press the button that it provides the information of what we should do in terms of an operational setup. In terms of natural solutions, if you look at things like sustainable aviation fuel, right now there is sustainable aviation fuel on the market with things made out of recovered cooking oil from McDonald's French fryers and things like that. There's not enough cooking oil in the world. As much French fries as we eat, it's not going to cover our needs. We would have to eat way more French fries, and I don't think that is a sustainable solution for anyone either. There is a process which was discovered already decades ago called Fischer-Tropsch, which is a chemical process in order to create a synthetic gas, which then can be refined into basically a synthetic jet fuel. And this is something which a lot of different startups on the market are effectively doing in order to create an alternative to fossil fuel. This is extremely promising. However, it's not at scale yet, and this is what we are highly interested in, helping to scale these types of things. I can explain maybe later a little bit about, what are the shortcomings of Fischer-Tropsch in today's kind of environment. I think the technology is working, but in order to get it up to scale and to fix the supply chain, and there would be a lot of work to do. We've even seen other companies who are looking at, microbiomes who are essentially creating fatty acids themselves by eating, specific types of food stock like algae and things like that, which can also create a type of SAF if they're refined. So there's a lot of different approaches to the same problem. And myself and also the experts, like I would say, like our super aviation geeks who I work with and our SAF geeks are pinching themselves because they can't believe how lucky they are that they work in an environment where they see so much innovation and so many different approaches to solve.
This could be a good segue for my next question. You didn't mention in the different solution that you guys are looking at about hydrogen planes or EV or electric planes. How do you guys see that in the future? Maybe we can speak one after each other if you have any view on that.
Sure. So I would like to split maybe EV, urban air mobility, hydrogen, split these into kind of different categories. The Lufthansa business model is not classically driven towards replacing any of our services with these inner city taxi. We're not a taxi company. It could be that this is something in the future which becomes an ancillary service to a flight and gets you to the airport, and this is interesting. But I think it's not something that we are mixing in right now from an operational perspective. It's not something that we're currently involved in, seeing how we can get in there. So we're talking to all of these guys. We know all of these guys. I think that there's certain types of learnings that they can get from us, and I think from like IT learnings, for instance, or process learnings, that there's certain things that they can get from us because they're coming from an OEM situation where they build an aircraft and they need to build hardware and machinery, and they don't maybe understand how all of these things work in a closed circle or a closed system. So there we probably can give them some knowledge exchange. But then what they are doing, which I find extremely interesting, is they're looking at a lot more automation and sensors, and they're really heavily loaded with technology, and operating, going towards autonomous, which is not really a sustainability issue, but could be. And and they're really pushing towards the future, and they're moving much more quickly. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of exchange learnings back and forth between classic aviation and urban air mobility, like these regional taxis, like the Whisks of this world, or the Jobies, or the Liliums, or the Volocopters, or you name it. With regards to, but electric is not a solution for long haul or medium haul. The batteries are too heavy. If they would solve that, we could talk again, and it would be a whole different ballgame. But batteries are too heavy to fly any distance. So then you look into things like hybrid electric, where you would have maybe SAF or hydrogen and electric in it. So kind of like a Prius of the sky, let's say. There we could have a little bit more range. And this is interesting. We look. Right now, there's a lot of companies in the market, a lot of startups, Silicon Valley startups, or there's a few in Europe, who are trying to prove their technology by retrofitting another aircraft. Usually they're starting on 2-seaters, maybe they go to 4-seater, and then if they crack like 50-seater, 80-seater, 100-seater, we are then getting very interested in looking at this. So we're interested when they're cracking the 2-seater, but when they start cracking a larger kind of regional jet or regional propulsion, then we're getting very, very curious, very excited, and we want to more closely partner with them, because then we see really a classical potential supplier for the future. But then the last one, you said that you wanted to know about hydrogen. So hydrogen for sure. An extremely exciting topic, and if hydrogen is part of a hybrid, or if it's just hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen. So this is promising. It's probably not going to be promising for the complete long haul, but like a very good regional, European-wide, maybe up to 5-6 hours. And there we are very open to talking to a lot of different startups. And what we would like to understand as well is how this is all going to work from a supply chain perspective, from a ground operations perspective, safety issues about if you have compressed hydrogen tanks on the runway close to, I don't know, other vehicles. Can something explode? Do we have a safety implication? I think these topics all need to be very well sorted before anything happens. We have some projects and talk to different companies in order to understand the situation, so that we don't miss any boats, and that we also build up our own knowledge internally. So I think hydrogen is definitely something that the entire industry is very excited about.
Thank you for sharing all of those very valuable insights. So what needs to happen to have all of different solutions that you guys are looking at to be in a way fully deployed and making the plane, the transport by plane, carbon free or at least sustainable? How long do you think it's gonna take? Are we gonna make it by 2050? Maybe if you can tell us a little bit about your overview in the European, maybe US, if you have any insights as well. Did you see anything like blocking that you have identified? Is it a need for new policies to be put in place? Maybe lack of funding, maybe lack of technology or startups available already to scale?
What is the impeding factor? I think if I look at my own schedule and my own ambition and the ambition of our team and of my stakeholders at Lufthansa, the only thing that we lack is time. There's not enough hours in the day to do all of the projects that we might want to do. So we have SAF as a very big future beacon or current beacon. We have the problem where there's not enough of it, and not enough passengers are electing to buy it because it's quite expensive. So if we would put more investment, or if more people would buy SAF, we could obviously use this money also to show the industry and bring down the price. I don't think that money is really the issue. my experience is that there's so much venture capital, there's so many funds in the market funding green tech that this is not the limiting factor. The limiting factor is that we have to move together, building up that every single person in this ecosystem is able to contribute what they know and what they can, add to the puzzle, and this working together. I don't see a very fierce competitive landscape right now, like with IP, like I do in the urban air mobility world. I think that they're quite protective of their IP. Here, I think it's still quite open because a lot of the buyers of this technology, they all need it, so they're kind of looking towards cooperation and co-opetition and all of these kind of things. I think the biggest drivers for us of hitting our goal of 2050 is cheaper at scale, commercially readily available SAF. If hydrogen is actually going to work, Airbus has the date of 2035 for their big hydrogen aircraft. They think that it's quite ambitious, but I think that there's a lot of startups who are also ambitious and also very quick and not burdened by the politics of a big corporation, which are going to start nipping at their heels and push them. And I think that this consolidation idea where different startups are starting to consolidate their technology, or that maybe some of the larger ones are snapping up these startups, is not even close to happening yet because the technology is not as ripe as it could be. I'm looking forward to seeing these startups put pressure on Airbus and co. Mainly Airbus, I think.
So do you see any, because you didn't mention anything on that side, do you see any lack of policy that would need to be passed to, in a way, accelerate those change within the industry?
So one place where Lufthansa Airlines, I think, or Lufthansa Group, Lufthansa Airlines is a little bit struggling in a competitive situation right now is that our SAF is not subsidized by the government. Some of the other European markets have subsidized SAF, like in the Netherlands or in France. So that's putting us at a disadvantage vis-a-vis our B2B customers. This is something that policy-wise we would like to see change. We are strong opponents of taxing fossil fuel because this is just taking money out of our hands where we could invest it in SAF, and we are definitely motivated to do so. We just signed a $250 million deal for SAF offtakes in December last year. So we're putting our money and our investment money where our mouth is, and this is for sure important. We do not want to be penalized and taxed on top of this, because this is not what's needed. If people would like to pay a certain amount of money to fly somewhere, it should be that part of this money is going towards compensation through sustainable aviation fuel, or cheaper compensation like buying tree planting projects or something like that. So those are kind of two areas. Another thing which we find challenging is, and I think here I see a little bit of a difference with the US, their approach from the US government. So you have AFWERX in the US, which is Air Force's investment vehicle in order to accelerate startups in the aviation field. There's a lot of money going into urban air mobility, into autonomous flight and things like that. And you have a pretty big pot of money. I can't remember how much money is in there, but it's something like €500 million or something like that. In Germany, you have also €500 million sitting in a pot for clean aviation, and you have digitalization pots and stuff like that. Our money is maybe a little bit linked to research and not so linked to commercial endeavors. And I think that in theory, it's good, but in practice, companies cannot use this money to invest in things which are the future leading edge technologies, because they will miss the boat. They will be too slow because there's too many strings attached, and you have to bring along too many research institutes in order to really capitalize on something which needs to be done now. It needs to be done quickly within 6 months, 9 months, and then rolled out and implemented to customers, whatever. So I think that those are things where our different governments could potentially do things a little bit better.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's go into the specific of the CleanTech Hub. Can you tell us a bit more about like the story, the genesis of it? Why and who started the initiatives? What was the initial gap seen that in a way led to the thesis behind the CleanTech Hub?
So the very initial seeds of the CleanTech Hub, I think, came out of Lufthansa Group's strategy. I think that this kind of emerging from the crisis, and we had the worst 2 years of the history of the company, and every airline had the worst 2 years ever. We did not go bankrupt. We were supported by the government. We were extremely thankful, but it was a little bit touch and go for a while. But for the whole industry, we are not recovered. We are still in somehow crisis, post-crisis mode. We still have Omicron. But I think that in the summer, there was this kind of shift, like, okay, we are now repositioning for our next thing, which is to be strong again and to have we were a very strong airline before and a group. In 2019, I think we had the best year ever. And then all of a sudden, the world kind of ended and we were all kind of holding on for dear life. But this summer, we started emerging. And I think around May, June, when some of the restrictions lifted and we started seeing like the light at the end of the tunnel of COVID, I think it started to be like looking into the future mode and bracing ourselves for what's next and of the future growth. And then I think there, the opportunity was very clear. Like, we need to focus on climate next. This is the biggest topic that we need to focus on, as well as passengers, loyalty and all of these other issues. But we've always had those. But the new one that comes in is climate, and how can we really accelerate and make sure that we are ready for meeting these very, very tricky targets that we have. And we need to pull in a ton of external impetus and external technology, and to figure out how to bake this into the Lufthansa Group. So we had a new person named Annette Mann, who was then my direct boss and a brilliant leader. And she came in January 2021. She unfortunately now has got a new role as CEO of Austrian. So we have been extremely sad to lose her, but obviously we can't begrudge her such a fantastic promotion, and we will still see each other and everything. But so she pulled this together, and she, I think, very cleverly put together all of the best networkers and drivers of Lufthansa Group across the different business units to say, guys, we need power here, we need energy, we need this kind of push. Put this together, and we kicked off with like a meeting in June, a bigger kickoff a couple of days in August, and then I was onboarded end of August, or I was called and said, hey, Erin, you want to come over and do this? We think that you're right. You have the kind of entrepreneurial, salesy, and pushiness that we're looking for. And then we just started full on working to get this up and running, and here we are. It's a few months later.
Congratulations! Pretty quick for sometimes for like a big corporate is always like sometimes a bit more challenging to move on. So congrats on that. Can you tell us a bit more about like how the program works? What do you offer to founders and that you in a way invest in and support, like and maybe if you can relate to the challenges that you see that are specific to them when they arrive and knock on your doors, and thanks to you guys you can go to the next step.
So I called in somebody that I worked with before called Annie Druids, and she was somebody that I was working very closely with at LSG, the catering company, with a very strong organization of challenges, organization of, organizing pitches and things like that. And I had a couple of what we call focus area champions who had experience pulling up these pitch sessions with external companies. Technik had done quite a bit. Lufthansa Technik had done quite a bit. So we pulled together all of these different experiences of startup challenges that we had within the Lufthansa Group, who were kind of already sitting somehow in the umbrella of the CleanTech Hub, and put all of this knowledge together. And we made a process where we also have a pitch day quarterly, and we invite companies to come and pitch us something. We offer 10 boosters. The boosters are things like you can become, a supplier, or we can give you our first customership, which we have. It means like a pretty big volume actually for a young startup to get a Lufthansa as a customer. So we can give you a product with our volumes behind it. This is like a really big push. We can give you an endorsement. We can say, we have checked this technology, we have checked this management team, and we believe in you. So we will strategically partner with the company, which helps them to get venture capital or to get a second customer. We will hook them up as well with investment. We could invest in them ourselves or not, depending. We can help them with certification knowledge, because this aviation industry is tricky. It's like the operations is complex. And I think that if you're not in there, so like let's say these Fischer Tropf guys come in, or the SAF guys with synthetic fuel, they have like a small piece of technology. They're coming out of PhD programs in technical universities, and they're super brilliant, but like we could blow their mind with the complexity of a Lufthansa Group supply chain, for instance. So there, what I like to say, I always like, you can see my background, we have the wing. I stick these startups under the wing, and we like protect them in the Lufthansa Group, and we tell them, okay, you have to do this and this. So we have a huge bunch of, contacts across different industries or whatever they need. We have government contacts. And so we basically try and cook a little deal for each company individually and see how they could be baked into the Lufthansa world, how we could, not necessarily financially, like buy them and then own them, no, but like how could we take something that they have, some ideas, some whatever, and to implement it in one of our airlines or in our business somehow, and like to make it actually working, prove it, make it tangible, make it like easy to communicate, where they can get a lot of acceleration out of it. So we're not an accelerator per se, but kind of, yes. Or the Lufthansa Group is the accelerator, and we bring them in and figure out like who to send them to and how to fix it up.
So you definitely have a role of facilitator within the complex world of the aerospace industry. So can you give us maybe an example? And you mentioned a few of them during the interview so far of your previous like companies that joined the program. I mean, what makes them special? The team, I guess, the market, the technology. How do you source those founders and team? How do you ensure that also they don't in a way become lazy by thinking of like, especially important at the early stage of a startups is to have this hungriness to grow and become like a bigger or larger structure and more sustainable. So sometimes having a big parents or being under a wing, it's always can be another challenge. It's like we have time to survive. It's longer. So who should come to pitch you? Who are the companies that you're looking for?
So we've got some companies that have pitched in the background. And like I mentioned, it's really these beautiful stories of two young PhD students who have like a, crazy mad scientist breakthrough technology that they've somehow created in a lab at their university. And now they are brave enough to bring it out and to turn it into a startup and to come and approach Lufthansa. So they approach us for a pitch or they approach us, I don't know, somehow through the back door or wherever. And if we see something there that we find has potential, then we will try and do something for them. It is not the main operating procedure of Lufthansa Group to financially invest in all of these companies. Definitely not. We are not an investor in this sense. We will only invest if it's a strategic benefit for us, and if we are a strategic fit in terms of that. Otherwise, I think it's better to stay in the customer role and then to help them with knowledge exchange and with like, hey guys, why don't you talk to these people? Or we met this company which can help you, or this is a current supplier of ours, and please get your product in here and we will work together on the specifications. So there's a pretty nice example, and this company is somehow sexy. They have everything. They have like two young female founders, super smart science, and so a company called Traceless. It's German, so we're German. Everything perfect match made in heaven. They have a plastic alternative, which are pellets, which are able to be put into any kind of plastic tooling. So it means that you're not basically mucking up the supply chain by needing to source new products and getting new products into the supply chain, which is complicated. You have specifications. There's a lot behind all of this. Specifications, everything in SAP. You have supplier contracts, blah blah blah. So they have a product which is somehow clever. It's replacing plastic, and it will dissolve in your compost heap at home in 40 days. There's a video on YouTube that shows over time lapse. This thing just dissolves. So even that, they're not at scale, and they have this challenge now of finding, a place to put a factory and ordering the machinery to produce this stuff. And they're also not at scale yet, but we really want to be there with them when they are scaling. So we've ordered now. It sounds super small for the world at large, but it's important because every little thing counts. If you get the first product, then the second one is easier, and the third one is easier, and the fourth one, and then it becomes, I think that the scaling happens automatically. So we have this like see-through plastic bag to go around a cutlery pack as the first thing that we're doing with them. This is nothing fancy and nothing, we tried to pick something easy that could go fast, but our volumes are in the millions, guys. So when you have one product, it can already be really helpful for a company. So this is what we have done with Traceless. It's not the same situation for everybody, but we try and figure out, okay, what can make this company shine, make them like really help them. And so that would be one example.
Thank you so much. It's exciting. And which out of all of those companies that you see passing through the different pitch there, or that in a way their deck land into your.
How do they succeed?
No, my question would be more like about like which one do you see as with your with overview now on this whole landscape? Like, which one do you think has the most is most interesting in terms of what I call ICR, impact cash return? So meaning like building impactful companies while creating a highly profitable business in the aerospace industry. Do you see any underdog subsectors area that you're excited about in the aviation landscape that maybe other investors or the founders should look at?
I don't know. I think that Lufthansa probably, we also look at things that are not sexy as being exciting for us, and like the secret unicorn. They're not going to be unicorns probably, but the secret winners that we could identify are things like. So we have a company pitching, upcoming company pitching, and if I read this, I'm like, oh, I don't really see the big benefit. But when somebody from Lufthansa Technik reads it, they're like, that's something we need to solve. We've been wondering how to solve that for years and years. And this is a company which is making an insulation which goes between the outside of the aircraft and the panel walls. And apparently, in the past, we have a huge amount of water vapor which kind of collects in the insulation, and it creates a real weight problem. And so now we have a company who wants to pitch us an insulation which does not retain water. So it means that the whole aircraft does not have this extra weight which is traveling around. So you know the size of the aircraft, and you think, okay, if it's collecting 90% water vapor from outside, you can kind of extrapolate that this is quite a few kilos. Every kilo creates more fuel burn. And stuff like that are like the real kind of hidden gems where our kind of nerdy engineers might get excited. Obviously, if this is a Silicon Valley startup podcast, then you want to hear about hydrogen and eVTOL and SAF and synfuels and all this. I fully understand, but also sometimes those other under the scene, behind the scene things are exciting for us as well. It's a whole spectrum.
Fair enough. That's for sure. But on the other side of the spectrum, like to your opinion, which are the solution that you believe makes zero sense in a way whatsoever and sounds almost like greenwashing or waste of time or resource? Do you have maybe any example that you saw recently? With no need to name the company in itself, but
I mean, greenwashing is when you do marketing about stuff which was probably not invented for having climate effects, but was invented for cost effects. Okay, but we do have a lot of these kind of solutions that exist internally as well. We try not to market them too much because we didn't come up with the solution for saving the planet. We came up to save money and to save fuel. Fuel is expensive. I think your audience knows that. So mislabeling that is potentially something which I could say could be perceived as greenwashing, whereby saving fuel is key towards saving CO2 emissions. In terms of external technologies where I think really there's no point, I'm like not technical enough to tell you. I think I hate to say it, but I think everything is cool when it comes in, and then our certain technologies, we send them to the engineers, we send them to flight ops, or send them to Technik, and they kick it out and they say, this is hogwash, this is BS, whatever, and they kick it out, and I say, really? I thought it was good. But yeah.
So I think this is the right time to ask as well, how do you measure impact? Do you have any specific process or framework, or do you rely maybe on scientists or experts to validate that the tech or the new solution that is presented to you can really have an impact? Maybe it's a cost impact, maybe it's in terms of CO2 removal or avoided, or maybe social impact. Is there any criteria that you guys are looking at as well?
So we have this discussion all the time about how to measure impact for our projects. Because the CleanTech Hub is new and because this environmental impact measurement is somehow not completely new, but in this regard new, we have to look at new metrics and measures, and we're implementing now a new homegrown IT system to rank projects in terms of their kind of score. We have a new product which is in MVP implementation phase called EcoScore, and it basically gives you like a scala of how impactful the project will be. So this is something, it doesn't mean that we have completely excluded external providers for this. We have, however, a whole bunch of IT systems. We have way too many IT systems, like all airlines. Yeah, it's the nature of the complexity and the history of big companies. Okay, we have too many IT systems, but we have very sophisticated, long-running projects and teams which look at things like flight up efficiency and fuel efficiency, and we have an AI-based fuel calculator and in Aviatar in a also a joint project which we developed with Google at Lufthansa Technik to really measure all of these things. We have a lot in the IT space to measure impact of specific things, but now what we are implementing is the measurement of these really sustainability projects and what they will bring to the group, because we do not have anything better than our gut for classifying it. We all know that this is not the right way. We are a German company with a lot of engineers. This is obviously not the end picture.
So what's next for the CleanTech Hub, and what's your goals for the next 6 to 12 months?
So 6 to 12 months, we have a very robust event schedule, I would say, where we are linking up with different external events as well as internal. We are trying to create spaces, physical spaces, where some of our startups that we're working with can have access to aircraft and engineers and know-how in our hangars at Lufthansa Technik in Hamburg, for instance. So this is a project that we're setting up. We have quarterly pitch days. So the next one is February 24th, and we have 8 companies pitching. Right now, what we have to do is talk to all of those companies to make sure that they are spot on with how they pitch to our management board or the jury, because we have seen from the past that if they spend too much time framing the problem, they run out of time to frame the solution, and we already know the problem very well. We are in this business. We have been in this business for a long time, so we know CO2 savings and all of these things are the issues that need to be solved. So I think preparing all of this, and then the other things that we are doing full time is this boosting of projects. We already have, I think, 11 projects in boosting. They're receiving 1, 2, 3, 4 of these boosters that we have. And this means that there's project management on our side. There's instigating a project, getting it a proper home within the Lufthansa Group, pushing it, communicating it. And this is also from the core team perspective, a lot of work. It's like a lot of, full-time project work. So we have an H2 demonstrator project that we are assisting, that is based in Hamburg. Basically looking for other partners to come in and accelerate them. For instance, we have an aircraft which is coming in was parked in Spain, that we are looking forward to getting in a couple of weeks to start doing hydrogen demonstrations and figuring out the ground operations. We have AeroShark foil implementations, and this is a kind of a plastic foil which goes on the outside of aircraft to make them more aerodynamic, which shaves off a couple of percent of CO2 emissions. We have further implementations of different IT suites, which will be big projects. So we're touching all of those. It's not all part of the CleanTech Hub core responsibility, but we're doing a lot of different projects to get all of these things up and running.
That's
and there's
exciting.
more coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, and we'll be definitely happy to follow up with you guys. So before we close the first part of this interview, a couple of more questions for you, more on a personal side. Like, what's your view on the climate crisis? As I always ask, are we doomed? I mean, what would you say to people who feel demoralized by all the terrible news and already visible consequences on climate change?
What is the right answer to say here? I think this is a personality issue. The personality that I have is quite a positive, optimistic personality. Whether I believe my own jargon or I don't believe it, it doesn't matter. I have to believe it because otherwise I will just get depressed and not try. I get very energized by all of the innovation that I see. This is something that personally really, really gives me power and passion as well. And if I would focus on the negatives, I don't think that I would be able to do anything. So it's for me just an integral part of my personality that I am positive. I am very positive with regards to technology. I think that technology can change a lot. Obviously, behavior is the other part of the other flip side of the coin, and behavior is a super important driver as well. What I rather dislike is people who just complain all the time. This kind of complain activism on Facebook, where people just shame companies or shame industries who are actually trying really, really hard and putting in a lot of work to transform things. I think that it's a lazy answer to just point fingers and to only use behavior and not try and use influence of building up a future alternative. I don't think that any of these people legitimately never want to fly in an aircraft again. I don't believe this. I don't believe that they don't want to visit family somewhere or friends or ever visit another culture. I think this is absolutely nothing that our modern society wants to go back to. Aviation is like mankind's top proof of innovation, and something that we I think as humans should be really proud of, that we are flying an aircraft. We don't have wings, but we managed to figure it out. And don't worry, we'll manage to figure out how to do it in a sustainable, cleaner way. You asked me before if we're going to hit 2030 and 2050. Yes, but if not, we will hit something close, and then we will have a lot of work because there will be more technology available to maybe do more carbon capture. Maybe it'll be cheaper. I think that things will work out. I don't know how the future exactly looks, but I think I have to be optimistic in this regard.
I totally agree with you. We need to stay optimistic. We need to move on. And unfortunately, things are not easy. Won't be easy. But there is nothing worse than sitting and just complaining about the situation. So, just a last question. We always speak in the tech industry, but also in a big corporation, about the gender equality and opportunity. Again, you are a great example. That woman has a critical role in the fight against the climate crisis and has their place to fight in that. What would you say to a woman who wants to, in a way, take that step? What's your view on it?
I think that I think in any industry you have to have a balance, because it's never good to have only one viewpoint. I've been in very male-dominated industries before. I was just in IT previously to this, and this is quite male-dominated. I kind of like it to be the only girl sometimes. It's for me fun, but I also like being one of many women. In this role in the CleanTech Hub, there's really a lot of strong women. We have CleanTech Hub sitting under Annette Mann. She has a new successor, also a fantastic woman, Carol Dresche, who is coming from Swiss. Christina Förster as a board member, fantastic, role model. And then I hate to say it, but a lot of the CleanTech Hub core team are also women. We only have one guy now. And this was not on purpose, but it is what it is. And we feel very bad for him. And we try and help him and take care of him because we know that it's a bit hard. I think you need everything. We have a lot of areas of the Lufthansa Group which are maybe a little bit male-dominated, but other areas which are completely female-dominated, like catering was also female-dominated, crew is quite female-dominated, cockpit is a little bit male-dominated, but I think in headquarters we see a lot of mixing, and I think that this is a very important culture of mixing different styles, different experiences, different approaches, and welcome. Women, I say women have to come, they have to show passion. Annette told me my job was to sparkle and to bring visibility to the CleanTech Hub. This is what I try to do every day. As
so how can exactly. So how can the community can help you today? I mean, community of investors, founders, experts around the world who are listening to the show. How can they help you?
I don't know, Jerry Maguire, help me help you. We are in the business of trying to find opportunities that we can implement into Lufthansa. So if you see anything along the lines of aircraft hardware retrofit that can make our aircraft more aerodynamic or lighter, or that the engines run better or cleaner. If you see any kind of technology which is going to be a breakthrough for new types of fuel, for SAF, for instance, or power to liquid, or sunlight to liquid, or things like that, get in touch. If you have any kind of IT solutions where you think that could make us more efficient or reduce our waste footprint, get in touch with us. If you have any kind of out there ideas of the next generation of aviation, get in touch. We have a lot of different areas that we're trying to solve, a lot of firefighting on different areas. We need a lot of help from the external market. You said you have a lot of venture capitalists. We would appreciate if you invest in these great companies. If you see something, and if you've invested in something, get in touch with me. I'm very, very happy to hear. I've already had this situation where venture capitalists say, look, we have something really interesting. I think it could be good for you. And this is, I think, just networking, basic networking. And then everybody does their part. We do the part of, expert. Venture capital brings money and some expertise as well. Startups bring science, they bring the speed. And I think when this ecosystem is all clicking together, then we're going to make magic.
Any question I should have asked that did not for this first part of the interview? I see that we're running a little bit of time, but we'll move on to the second part soon. Let me know.
No, I think we can move on to the second part, then I have nothing else.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much, Erin. Thank you so much for your time and your incredible insights on the industry. I'm so excited to see so many brilliant people like you, putting so much time and effort to make the travel industry better, cleaner, faster, maybe cheaper. But thank you so much for all of those efforts.
Thank you so much, Guillaume. It was a pleasure.
Hi, it's Guillaume again. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. As I said, do not hesitate to share an episode with a friend. Also, if you value the work we do for the climate tech ecosystem, here is how you can contribute to it. Today, I'm asking for your support and a donation or sponsorship to make the work of our self-funded team more viable. Even a small contribution means a lot to us. In any case, I will invite you to subscribe to our channels and visit our website startupbasecamp.org to discover more episodes like this one. And get your membership to access all our members' exclusive content. So remember, all of this is possible because of your support and donation. And we want you to be part of this collective movement against climate change. Let's keep in touch, and I hope you will enjoy our next show with us.